Hi, my name is Sanna Wolf-Watz. I'm the author of 3 books and 2 guides that I've self-published, and I'm here to talk about the process of writing. I'm going to go more in depth what you can do if you are not a plotter. Not a plotter. If you didn't see the previous video, I think you can still watch this, but otherwise, feel free to check it out. I'll link it somewhere. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to know more. So, to plot or not, we talked about last time the way that you can structure your writing process, and today I'm going to talk about more about that. A lot of people plot their books out in advance, even their series in advance. There's a lot of information here on YouTube on that. For instance, Heart Breathings with Sarah Cannon. I know I keep mentioning her name, but she's amazing, so it's well deserved. I've done a few creative writing courses, and they've all talked about, the importance of writing a synopsis or knowing where your ending is going to be, and so on and so forth. I disagree with that. I'm a journalist, and I've this is actually some things journalism and writing, even fictional writing, kind of agree on. But I think here is an important difference, and I think that knowing that you can have a different attitude to this will help people. I think saying that you have to know certain things in advance can really block people from writing. In journalism, we have a different approach, and that is that you don't know the angle necessarily when you go out to write something, because things change and you don't always know exactly what's going to happen. You have to be flexible. And so there, my journalism professor, he used to make this joke about a person who was supposed to go to court for a court hearing, is just supposed to write an article about that, and that was like the angle, was that what's going to happen in this court negotiation. And he came back, and the editor said, "Okay, so what you got for us?" And he's like, "Nothing." He's like, "What do you mean you got nothing?" He's like, "No, there was someone stormed the courthouse, so there was no court proceedings, so I couldn't write anything." And you can hear how crazy that sounds. Like, no one would do that. No one would do that. You can't, like, you can start and you can have an idea of what you kind of want to have out of this, but you cannot have that set in stones, because then you might miss the actual plot, like the actual event that takes place. And so this is why I think that you don't need to know the ending when you start. You don't need to know all your characters very well. You don't need to know what's going to happen in every single chapter. You don't need to have your little avatars of your characters. If you do want to do that, that's fine. Like I said, a lot of information for you guys out there. But if you might just have a scene in your head that you really like, start with that. Start from that. So what I did when I wrote this series that I'm publishing now was that I saw 2 films in my formative years. One of them I think is called The Game. I need to look that up, but I think it's called The Game, which is a really good film about a guy who thinks he is in a real chain of really strange, difficult situations. He gets kidnapped, and there's just a whole event. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's not how he thinks it is. So, and then I saw Truman Show. Freaked me out. Like, I was scared of mirrors for years, because in the Truman Show, like, of course, there are like cameras in the mirrors and stuff. So I was like, ah, stop doing funny faces to the mirrors that I've always enjoyed doing before. Those 2 kind of merged in my head, and I started thinking, like, what if the characters were kids? Like, what if this and this happened? And suddenly I had this scenario, I had these characters in my head, I had a scene. I didn't know exactly how it was going to end, and I wasn't even sure that it was the same sort of underlying theme as these 2 films had. I was just like, that was my starting point. And I wrote it. I started writing it when I was maybe 14, 15, kind of, like the first scenes, and then I left it and I came back and I kept writing, and by the time I was 20, 21, I think I had it all, and it was like a full like a book. It was just one book. And then, like I said in the previous video, I realized it was too long and too brief, too much happening in, you know, too limited a space. I didn't have time to develop the characters and so on. So I decided to chop it up into pieces and turn every piece into its own book. And that gave me the time to really work through the events, like work through the characters. And while I was doing that, I realized that I had to plot. So first part of the process, just writing. You can do that too. You just write down what you have, just put it out there, and you will realize when you're writing, one scene will follow another, and sometimes they don't exactly link into each other, which is perfectly okay, because you can fix that later. There is like nothing that says that you have to write it all in a consecutive order. You can just have fun with it. Some of the scenes didn't make sense where they were. Some scenes had to move into different book. They were just different. It just made sense for them to be in a different part of the series. In some places, I needed extra chapters between scenes. So that's kind of when I plotted. That's when I went through it all. Like, I already had the foundation. I had written my way to the end, so I now had the end. I had the beginning. I knew the characters because, you know, I've been hanging with them for years. And so that's when I started plotting, and that's when I was able to use all this awesome information on plotting. Once I had my cropped out books, I guess, like the material, I sat down and I went through them, and I, you know, edited, I rewrote, I added new scenes, I took away some scenes that didn't make sense because I had added characters that I didn't have before, and I had a lot of fun going through them again. It's a lot of fun, a lot of awkward moments. Teenage writing sometimes is very, very awkward, and I realized that I've changed as a person with my, like, the things that I thought was okay when I was 16 just did not seem that okay when I was, you know, going through them again. And so that changes and that stuff. That's okay. That's okay. That's part of the process. You write what you have when you have it. You can always edit it. You can always make sure that it makes sense, that it's true to you, that your characters haven't completely gone, you know, crazy. They do sometimes, but you usually can rein them in the second or third or fourth draft. And that's when it's fun to plot, because when you've already invested so much work in it and you already know them so well, you come back to them and you kind of keep at it. And it's more easy to do that once you know that you have the whole story. It's already written, you already put all this effort in. Most of it's done. I kept telling to myself, like, you know, because I think the first part I had like 35 or 40,000 words. So I was like, I'm halfway there. I am halfway there. And even though I had to like exchange a lot of those words, it still felt like I'd done the first part. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and that makes it sometimes hard to start because you want it to be perfect. And there is no such thing as perfect in this world, which is really annoying, actually. If you're a perfectionist, you will have tendencies to overwork things before you even start because you want them to be so awesome. It's better to just start, and you can always go through it again, rewrite it until you're happy with it. Well, as happy as it's possible for perfectionists to be. And I think I will do a video on perfectionism as well. Like, there's so many people who want to be writers. So many people dream of writing their books, like telling their stories. And I understand why, because if you have a love for books, which a lot of us do, writing them is like the ultimate way of showing that love, I think. And so most of us want to do that, and yet we keep holding ourselves back because we are scared of not being good enough. Doing it this way, just writing it this way, is, I think, can be a help for perfectionists. I think I'm gonna leave it there for today. Please give me your thoughts down in the comment section. Like, subscribe if you want to see more of this, and what you would like for me to talk about. I guess I'm really excited about having this be more like a conversation than just a monologue. So a brief summary is that you can absolutely start with whatever you have. You don't need to know everything in advance. You can just write the whole thing as one, and then you can, like I did, chop it up in parts and work through the different parts. There is no need for it to be perfectly set out before you start. Actually, perfect does not need to come into this at all. Alright, if you need clarification on things, just, leave your comments below, like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Alright, bye.